Wow, 10 years. Can you believe it? It's been 10 years. We started playing this game back in 2014, and we never looked back. And here we are, right here, right now. It's time for celebration. We made it. 10 whole years. And no one can take that away from us. The name Kukui Charles was not a name that I came up with. It was a name given to me by my father. Now, the reason for that is because at a young age, my whole family would tell me that I was a terror at a young age. And my dad would call me a Kukui. Now, a Kukui can mean two things. One, it's the Spanish version of the boogeyman. And the second thing is General Monster. My dad was calling me the latter. And the name Kukui Charles stuck. And would follow me for the rest of my life. As a kid, I had a real fixation on Legos. Legos was one of the main things I really played with as a kid, and genuinely, they were just really fun to mess around with, which led to my family, when buying a 3DS for me, to buy another game along with it. That game being one of the most influential games in my early childhood. This game is LEGO Battles, an RTS game for the DS, and it was one of the most fun games I played in my early childhood, because the only other game I'd played at that point was Pokemon on a Game Boy, which was, in my opinion, very lame. But LEGO Battles wasn't lame, and I remember playing so many things on LEGO Battles. I would play that game so much, and I loved its campaigns from the early Knights to the Space Age, and it was a very fun game. But there was one level in particular that I really would always go back to every single time because it was very fun. It was during the space kind of campaign area, and specifically you're playing as characters that you don't normally access within the game. And it's a faction that belongs to an alien faction, and they're space criminals. And the character that you need to use in this game is called the Space Criminal Leader. Now, the Space Criminal Leader has a interesting mechanic to him that was appealing to me, and that he could hotwire a vehicle. Now, there's only 4 vehicles that any player is allowed to have on the map at one time, and you can't exceed that amount. So, I can only build 4. But what the Space Criminal Leader could do is steal one of those special units. And in this mission, your goal is to steal a tank and bring it back to your base. So I would play this level over and over again, and I never got bored of it, and I always came back to that level. But there was one day when I played this level that I realized something about video games that I would never unrealize again. I would play the same level again, like I normally do, and I would be approached by this spaceship that was in my way to get to my objective. The way I always went about this was hotwiring the spaceship and using the spaceship to attack the enemies. So I did, and for whatever reason, this time it didn't work. I was confused and thought that I had misclicked, but no, I realized I heard the sound, I heard the effect, and I realized in that moment that I actually had not hacked the spaceship. I had hacked the thing under it. And it became to my side, which was non-intentional. It was my first ever glitch that I would discover in a video game. I was so confused as to why this happened, and I realized that games had bugs. Not everything was set in stone. At a young age, I was given unrestricted access to YouTube, and one of the channels that I watched at the time was Vanoss Gaming, And Vanoss Gaming introduced to me PC gaming as a whole. So when my family had gotten a PC, I went on and downloaded Steam when I got the chance. When I downloaded Steam and I looked through the Steam kind of store catalog, a lot of games costed money, something I didn't have, nor did my family have at the time. So I looked through and I found this blocky looking game that looked kind of fun to play. It was July 16th, 2014, 9 days after Unturned's release on Steam. And at the age of 9, I would open and start playing Unturned. My earliest memory of Unturned was playing 2.0 Arena and treating the Arena mode as a survival mode because you could do that. And I remember building a little house in the middle of the monoliths and killing the deer for food, but my mind kind of gets fuzzy after that point. And then we get into 3.0. I remember opening up 3.0 for the first time, and I wanted to play on the internet. So I clicked the internet button, and nothing showed up. Because nothing would ever show up unless you click the servers button, which I didn't know. Which made me just play single player a lot. And I would think in my head that single player was somehow a server and that someone would join. So periodically in a single player world, I would type in chat saying hello or is anyone there, and not ever get a response because it was single player. Because I didn't realize that it was. Eventually I would figure out how to play multiplayer, and I would play on a bunch of PvP servers. I remember playing specifically on the Brains network at the time. And I remember finding a Romanian guy. And this Romanian guy was just a cool guy. He was very nice. And I played with him one day fully, and then the next day would play Unturned again on the same server. And before he logged off for the night, he actually wanted to show me something. I didn't know what he wanted to show me, but I followed him anyway because I was intrigued. He would take me to the PEI lighthouse, and he would place 3 plates in a triangle formation on a slight hill, and would go under it. And he would tell me to teleport to him, which I did. And after I did, I had fallen under the map, and I was looking right back at him on the water from under the map. And in that moment, I remembered my LEGO Battles glitch I had done with the Hotwire, and realized that PC games have also issues as well. And as that's all happening in my mind in that moment, the Romanian guy says,
Isn't that funny? Well, I have to go. You have a good day and a good life, my friend.
he would log off for that night, and I would never see him ever again. Even though I never saw him again, he would change the way I think about Unturned, and I started thinking about other ways to break Unturned after that one moment. And eventually, I would switch accounts to the account that I use now for Unturned in December 5th of 2016. Moving Steam accounts was a little bit daunting, but it wouldn't take long before I found my new server to call home, and that server was Blockheads. That server was a kit PvP server that I played a lot of. And eventually I would find another guy by the name of Brandon who played the server a lot as well. Me and him quickly became good friends, and we would team up and play on the server together. We played Unturned together almost every day for a couple of months at this point. And I thought it would be advantageous to talk to him outside of Steam, because we would only use Steam to communicate. And I didn't have Discord or Skype at the time, so I went to the third best option, which was an Instagram account that I barely used. So I gave him my Instagram so we could talk outside of Unturned and just, talk about Unturned stuff outside of Steam. And this would all culminate into a group that we would both create called the Coleone Crime Family on July 17th of 2017. The group was used as a way to, not only have a permanent Steam group, but also to invite people that we liked into our group and play with them as well. because prior to that we were using a public Steam group that belonged to somebody else. And the first thing we did in this new group was make a glitch base on blockheads. Now, usually on servers, if you ever make a glitch base, you will get permanently banned if someone were to catch you doing so. And it wouldn't take long before I got caught with the glitch base. But unlike many other servers at the time, this server did not ban me permanently. They gave me a warning and told me not to do it again, or else there would be consequences. And I complied, and they left me off the hook. It was a weird experience, and I never really seen that out of an administration team before. Because I had known that glitching was very, very much frowned upon by almost every single server chain, which was a bit odd to see it on such a populated server at the time. But anyway, since we couldn't make a glitch base, we decided to go ahead and make a sky base together. And there's a lot of other people who were also part of this group at the time that we were doing all this. And we made all rooms for each other. And we just lived out of the sky base right off of Olympia. And it was good. It was good times. And I remember specifically how that was the peak of our group. And after that, it would be all downhill. The Coleon crime family group would fall into this array. Every new member would be at each other's throats and would fight amongst each other, act toxic towards each other, to the point where almost every member of the group would leave, and the only two people left of the group was me and Brandon. Which was fine because Brandon was still my closest friend, and Brandon would play on turn with me almost every day. So I was fine with the whole ordeal of our group collapsing, and we would continue playing Unturned for a while. Blockheads, the kit PvP server that me and Brandon were playing on, had opened a new server centered around Germany, and when that happened, me and Brandon moved over and started playing Germany. On July 26, 2017, we were approached by one of the admins of the staff team, and they gave us a very odd task. The task was to break into a glitch base that was above the Kaiser boss room, and it was the reward for doing so was moderation powers on the server, because they had known that we played on the server so much. So, given that knowledge, I went through the whole questline with Brandon and got into that room. And I realized when I got into the room that the entire area was claim flagged, and there was no real way to place anything in this place. So I had to think. And I realized that actually there was one item that you can place and interact with because you're able to step on them. And it was the precision charge. The precision charge was in a kit, and basically I would use the precision charge to stack on top of each other to make a staircase into the corner of the Kaiser Quest zombie room. And then using the TPA glitch, I would break out of the room and then buy a vehicle to fly up to a snowflake glitched admin base. And after we did all of that, the admin was true to his word and gave us both moderation powers on the server. And after that, we were kind of left alone to our own devices. Now, you could probably imagine what two young kids with moderation powers of a popular server chain would do, but I'll leave that to your own imagination. I'll just say that it was a very fun time. As time went on, I started to realize that Brandon became more and more toxic, and Brandon just started saying more stuff that he wouldn't normally say, and started saying more heinous stuff. And the Brandon that I kind of knew was starting to fade away. And this all would culminate in late August of 2017, where Brandon would go back and look at the Instagram account that I used to communicate with him, and he would scrape all the images from that Instagram account and use the images from my Instagram account to send to the staff team to make fun of me. And I didn't know about this until the staff team told me that it happened, and I just couldn't believe what happened. I fell into a really depressive state. I just couldn't believe that he would do something like that to me. In a lot of ways, he was like a brother to me, and it was a knife to the heart to have someone just do that to you, unprovoked. I wouldn't touch my computer for weeks, and I remember laying on my bed just thinking to myself as to why would he do that? And I tried rationalizing it so many times, and I never could figure out as to why he would do something like that. It really fucked with me mentally, really badly. It wouldn't be until early September where I got back on my computer and I opened my computer to Discord, which I had gotten a little while before I got my moderator on Blockheads. And in the Discord for Blockheads, there was an admin in the voice call. And it was the same admin that had given me the test back in July. So I joined the voice call, and he obviously remembered me. And I basically explained where I was and what happened to me. And he already knew what happened because he was one of the people who saw what happened. And this whole ordeal would reveal to me the actual truth of what the test was supposed to be. He would tell me that the test was not to test me on if I was moderation material. It was to test if I was a person who can work with glitches, and to test if I could break into their admin base. And I had passed that test. And due to the circumstances that were around me at the time, I was offered to join his group. I had no idea what he was really talking about, but I had nothing else really to do in Unturned at that point, so I accepted his offer. Little did I know the man that I was dealing with. Little did I know what ride I would be in for. Little did I know how much that decision changed my entire life. The man that did all of this, the man that gave me the test, the man who offered me to join his team, that man's name is Code Pro. Code Pro, like any other player in Unturned, had very humble beginnings, with being introduced to Unturned by a friend back in 2014 who was stuck in a well, and asked Code to bring a vehicle to get him out of the well. And the only way to do so at the time was to use the Hamachi server. And he did so, which took some time. But in that time, Code became intrigued with Unturned and started playing Unturned a lot in single player. Eventually, he would move over to playing multiplayer servers, specifically a PvE server known as Nova Scotia, where he would meet a lot of interesting individuals and quickly rise the ranks of the administration team of Nova Scotia. He would learn a lot in his early days of Nova Scotia and would protect people from bad actors that existed on the server. Eventually, as time went on, Nova Scotia had shut down, and Code would move to a different PvE server. On this new PvE server, Code would meet this one player that he wanted to do a trade with for an 8-time scope. Now, during the discussion of what they would trade for, the player decided to walk away and go to Home and Isle. Now, this kind of frustrated Code because he wanted to trade for that 8-time scope. And he knew that this player was gonna just ignore him because he was ignoring him in the chat after he had left. So, due to his general knowledge in Unturned at that point from his already time in vanilla and adminning on Nova Scotia, he knew how to kill this player in PvE. And he found a vehicle of his, which was an orange off-roader, and rigged it up with explosives, and waited for him in a tree to come and get the car. And lo and behold, he goes in the car, and he blows up. Code just wanted the scope from that ordeal, but then he realized that it was much better to just kill the players and take all of their items. Code had just opened his own Pandora's box, and there would be no end in sight. It wouldn't take very long before Code refined his methods to killing players in PvE, and he would eventually hit his first of many roadblocks. That being that he can only be in one place at one time, and most people would have probably settled for what they already had, or had given up at this point, when they hit a roadblock like that. But Code had a better idea. Code thought to himself, since I can't be at everywhere at one time, and I'm just one person, then I need to multiply. And he went back to go contact friends from his Nova Scotia days to bring along and teach how to kill players in PvE. And eventually, he would create one of the most infamous groups in PvE history. That group being Demolition Crew. I was at the bottom of this mountain of knowledge, and to symbolize this new era of myself, I had shed away the gold suit and moved over to a new flashy suit. I began to learn the ropes. We would all go and start playing PvE servers together, and I would quickly learn the ropes of how our group operates, with learning how to kill players in PvE, along with manipulating players and just trying to figure out what they will do next. And it was very interesting because a lot of these players believed that they were invincible, which led to a lot of them acting like assholes to each other. And we stripped away that kind of ideology from a lot of players and destroyed them and put them in the ground and showed them that they weren't invincible and they weren't, hot shit. We did this across tons of PvE servers, and we had a little pushback because the servers we played on were unrestricted and just completely unmoderated servers. Until we found one server, that server being called Bloxburg. And this server was not like the typical servers that we used to play on, and instead we had to play on this server a little bit more covertly. Code saw it as a challenge for us to see if we could exist in the presence of moderation, and we would play for a good while on that server. Since we were doing this as a bit of an experiment, I wanted to do an experiment myself, which was to commit psychological warfare against the administration team. So I would go look around the map and would find one of the admin's bases, and I would stay outside the admin's base for hours, not moving and just looking in the direction of the admin's base. And I did this for a while, to the point where the admin who lived at this base would teleport me away and would ask other people to, get me away from this house, which never worked because I was laser focused on the psychological warfare that I was committing on this admin. The admin was so unsettled by this behavior that they would teleport to Code and would ask Code to tell me to stop. And Code would respond with, "Charles is his own person and he does his own things." Eventually, I would stop my gang stalking behavior and would just play the server normally. And surprisingly, Code had made good relations with some of the staff team, and we talked to a lot of the staff. And of course, one of those staff members that Code had made good relations with was the admin that I was gang stalking on the server when I started playing. And eventually, as time had gone on and we had played on the server more and more and more, we would get bored of the server and kind of move on. And the admin that I stalked, we told, "Hey, do you want to come and play with our group?" Because it was the only admin on the staff team that we kind of liked to play with. So we started playing with them a little bit more often. And surprisingly, me and this other admin from Bloxburg became good friends. And the admin's name was Smiley. During this whole Bloxburg ordeal, Code had enough confidence in me to show me his final glitch. And it was a glitch that he held very close to his heart because the glitch was a glitch that he discovered a very long time ago and it had never been patched. And it was a water plate glitch. And it was very interesting, and I honestly was sort of disappointed in myself that I couldn't find it myself. That was the last thing I needed to learn before knowing everything that Demolition Crew had to offer. At the same time this is happening, I'm still playing on Blockheads, and still PvPing players, and still messing around on there, and I'm also trying to figure out how to make different glitches, because the only other person that cared about glitches in the group was Code. That's the group focused on ruining the days of other players on PvE servers, which was fine. So, me and Code on many days would sit in Blockheads and just build glitches, and just try to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and what could be improved upon, and what could be done differently. And eventually, I would remember a weird bug with a bicycle. And I would remember, for whatever reason, Nelson had made it so that if all of a vehicle's area was closed off and there was nowhere that it could put you, that it would teleport you to the highest point of the structure. I wanted to know how far this actually could be pushed. And I realized that it didn't have to be attached to the structure in order for the glitch to work. And it could be just above the structure. So I kept moving the floor that I had higher and higher and higher and higher. And it kept teleporting on top of it. And I kept teleporting back on top of it. And I realized that you can teleport to the sky limit from the bottom of the ground in mere moments. And on July 20th of 2018, I would release the bicycle glitch. Making this glitch was very fun and very invigorating. It was the first glitch that actually I had found out, that no one else had really found out at the time. And it was just interesting, and I had very good fun just making this glitch. It was a very big highlight for me, and I really liked just the feeling of making glitches. So I would work on more and more stuff and learn more and more about Unturned's mechanics to try to exploit them more. And I never really stopped. Eventually, through testing and practicing on Blockheads, I would accumulate a large amount of glitches that I would find. And just like the bicycle glitch, I wanted to send these glitches over to Nelson so that he can fix them and I can get more glitches to work with to just break the game again. Because that was fun to me, and breaking the game was just something that I liked doing, and I just wanted to do it more. While this is all happening, Demo Crew began to feel some burnout on killing players in PvE, which was fine because me, Code, and a couple of others picked up the slack. And it wouldn't take long before that burnout hit me. I would move away from playing PvE and start playing arena servers. And one time on an arena server, I actually saw a player with a debugger's beret. And he was making jokes about how he got the hat, saying that he had bought the account from somebody else and stuff like that. And I asked him, how did you actually get the hat? And he leveled with me and said that he got the hat by being a dev on the Hawaii team, and that he was at the right place at the right time for the hat. And I said to him that I want to get that hat one day. And he would respond to me with a laugh and said that I wouldn't amount to anything in this game. And that player's name was Omyat. And that wouldn't be the last time I saw Omyat in this game, as he was pretty active in places around Unturned. At this point, I had tried to get in contact with Nelson multiple times, and it had led to no response, leading to me finding out about the Unturned forums. And I thought about that question I posed to Omyat a while ago, and wanted an answer to how you actually got the debugger's beret. And I also said that I had glitches that I could send to Nelson. And basically, it just led to kind of nothing until Nelson said something, and Nelson apologized for not responding to me, and also clarified how to get the hat. I was pretty happy that Nelson commented on this forum post, because it actually made me think that maybe Nelson will go look back at the emails I sent to him, and maybe just have it on his mind that these glitches exist, and they could be fixed whenever they're able to be fixed. But no, that comment would lead to nothing in response, and I would be left again trying to figure out how to send stuff to Nelson. Until I met another individual in the Unturned community by the name of Don Sven. You may know him by his work, such as Rocket Mod. At the time, and still is, one of Unturned's most important plugin frameworks. I would meet Sven in a random Unturned official Discord call, in which I explained to him my situation with sending glitches to Nelson, and he offered to help. So, later that day, I sent glitches over to him, in which he was responding to and sent over to Nelson. And after that interaction, I would send him 2 more videos with no response. But to me in that moment, I just thought that he just might have ignored it for the moment. At the same time, Demolition Crew was losing steam. Code, kind of the linchpin for our whole group at the time, was becoming less and less active as time had went on, and more of our group had become bored of playing Unturned, leading to a little bit of a decay and a little bit of everyone packing up their bags from Unturned and moving on. And the only real person that was left out of the group was the admin from Bloxburg, Smiley. So, I started playing on semi-vanilla servers with Smiley, and we would glitch and make glitch faces on these semi-vanilla servers and get caught within about a week or so, and we would do this from server to server to server. Of course, we only did the servers that we believed had no rules and didn't have any administrators, which most of them had secret admins playing the server. But not every Unturned server had diligent admins, and me and Smiley would stumble upon a very interesting semi-vanilla server. We had played this server like every single other semi-vanilla server that we played beforehand, and we basically set up our glitch base in the same spot and was getting ready to build up a really nice house, and we got off for the night. The next day, a lot of stuff was removed. I thought an admin originally got rid of all the stuff, but taking a closer look, I realized that this was a raid. It wasn't an admin removing our stuff from this place. Once I pieced that all together, I realized the server really had no administration keeping the server to maintenance, and I would look under the map and my suspicions would be confirmed with finding objects in random locations and just buildings under the map. And I would find a house and raid it. But it wasn't the base that raided us because it didn't have any of the loot that we had. and we had a decent amount. So I went back to our base, and I told Smiley, I said, wouldn't it be funny if the guys who raided us were actually in the rocks that were right next to our base? And once I actually looked in them, I realized that there was people living in those rocks. And we raided that entire base, and we got back some of the stuff that we had lost in that raid. And that was the first out of 2 other groups that were on the server who had glitch bases there. But the game had been set, and now there was a war amongst glitchers. Very quickly, I would relocate our base to a rock base. And anybody that knows anything about glitching, especially during this time, rock bases are some of the most hardest bases to break into, as most people don't know how to deal with them. And luckily for me, most of the players on the server don't know how to deal with rock bases. I would meticulously make sure that this rock base was as peak as it could be, making sure that nothing sticked out, making sure that there was no indication of us living there, so that nobody would be able to find it. And once I had accomplished that, we basically went out on a little bit of a hunt for these people. The person who we raided, who lived in the rock base right next to our original base, had told the other 2 groups who were glitching on the server that he was raided, and accused them of raiding him, which eventually led to more infighting and eventually him going silent. But both groups knew that they were not the ones responsible for raiding this guy's base, even though they were accused of it, and knew that they were dealing with a new threat, and also noticed that some things were being destroyed on the map as well. Very worried by this new threat, they went searching as well. We would find one of the groups' base that was under the map. It was in the golf course on the island in the middle of the water. Now, once we had found that, we immediately cleaned it out and took everything from them. And now, the last group that had a base on the server was panicking, and sort of recruited the group that just got raided by us to go ahead and find us. These guys spent probably about a couple days to a week looking for our base, and I remember one day when we were sitting at our base in the rock, we actually saw one of these players swimming around, moving up and down to see if they could find our base on the map. And we saw this 2 times while in our base, and we knew that we were being hunted, so we had to catch this last group slipping. I knew what I was dealing with, and I realized that these players were not glitchers. They were just people using the TPA system to break under the map. And it was very clear by the way that they went about their actions that that's what they did. So, I knew this last group would be no different. But unlike the 2 groups before, they actually tried to prevent another TPA glitcher to try to get into their base, which was a good strategy because they wouldn't have. But they didn't know one thing. They didn't know that an actual person who understood the game mechanics would actually try to raid their base, and their base was the best one to raid. Unlike the other 2 bases, this base was actually fortified, and it existed between the campground and Everett, inside of that bridge. They lived in the middle of the bridge in the leg, and had all the legs of the bridge completely claimed off, meaning that the entire bridge was claimed, meaning that no one could place objects around it to break into it. So, and you might be thinking, oh, couldn't you just go under it through the map? Not necessarily. Because there's a limit on how far you can go down in the water, you are actually limited in how far you can actually go up into the bridge. And since the bridge legs extend so far down, you can't go under them. So, now we have a little bit of a problem. How do you break into this place? I thought about for 30 to maybe an hour of thinking of to come up with a way to raid this base. And then it hit me. There was only one way you actually could raid this base, and that's from coming through the side, under the map. Because they didn't claim off the entire map, you can still use under the map as a way to get in. So, you could break in to a little bit of the bridge, but not the whole thing. And I exploited that. So, with Smiley by my side, I brought a bicycle over to the bridge, and I meticulously built a whole bridge of plates under the bridge to crawl my way under to get in their base. And I spent about 2 hours doing that, just back and forth, moving the bicycle, putting a plate in the front of it, making sure that worked, and going back and forth, just going over and over and over and over again until I reached it. I reached the middle of their base, and it was lockers galore. I blew up every single one of their claim flags and just celebrated and took everything. They would get on the next day, and they would realize that their base was raided, and effectively gave up. And the second group that I actually raided came to me and told me how did I do it. And I told them I was just the greatest. It was pure bliss. I had won the war. A war, mind you, that they didn't really know they had started by raiding my base on day 1. But I had won. And I had proven myself that I was able to deal with threats who thought that they were a threat to other people. And now that this was done, I kind of won. A week would go by. It's the beginning of the new year. And a player who was spying on me actually snitched me out to the admin. And I didn't know who actually ran this server at the time. This server was just a random semi-vanilla server to me. But I would hear rumblings that the server was owned by a YouTuber. And I was like, okay. And also realized that the server had this YouTuber's name in it. But I never looked into it. So, this guy who was spying on me reported me to the YouTuber. And while he was on a live stream, he actually joined and went to go see what this guy was telling him about. And that streamer was Liam Does Games. And yes, I glitched and had this whole glitching war with the YouTuber that you know as Liam Does Games. Now, Liam was not that big at the time. Liam barely hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. He had barely any following. And what a funny experience, huh? To think of where Liam is now is kind of funny to think about that I was glitching on his server back when he had 1K subs. But it's just another story of how small Unturned is, that I could be glitching on a semi-vanilla server. And then a couple years later, Liam is at the top of his game, killing it in the Unturned scene. So odd. I was effectively banned on that day. But then I pleaded with Liam about the rules being a little bit mixed, and along with there being other glitchers on the server. And I would get unbanned not too long after I was originally banned. And once I joined back, I was at Tacoma. I spawned back in Tacoma because I was killed by Liam before banning me. And I looked at Rainbridge from Tacoma, from the Tacoma beach, and just thought to myself that I had won. And this was a fitting end to just my reign on the server. And after I left that day, I never looked back. It was the start of March, and I'd be told by the owner of Blockheads that he would be shutting down the server later on in March. It was pretty sad. Blockheads was a server that kind of changed everything in my story, and just hearing that it would eventually be over was just kind of sad. It was understandable, though. Blockheads hadn't seen high player count numbers for almost a year. The community of Unturned moved away from kit PvP and moved towards more modded and X amount of times servers. Blockheads was just no longer seen as a good server to actually play on anymore. So, I would join the server for the last time due to being one of the only actual staff members who cared about the server still. And just reminisce It's a feeling that I can't really explain, so I won't try to. So instead, I'll give you this.
Sound of drums, people couldn't believe what I've become. Revolutionaries wait for my head on a silver plate, just a puppet on a lonely string. Oh, who would ever wanna be king? I hear Jerusalem bells ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name, never alone this world, but that was when I ruled the world.
And just like that, it would be over. And the bad news didn't really stop there, as Code had been playing on and off, and just one day, he would just vanish completely. I wouldn't get a message from him for a very long time, and with Code now being officially gone, the rest of Demo disintegrated, and everything was split at that moment. So I was alone, playing Unturned still. I still talked to Smiley, but Smiley was busy with real life things to really continue playing Unturned for the time being. So, I was back on my lonesome again. So, I wanted to prove to myself that I could redo what Demo did a very long time ago. So, I found a random group of people and told them, "Hey, do you want to become gods?" The names of these players were Hank, Toby, and Daniel. These 3 players were just a group of friends having fun on PvE servers, but after I interacted with them, I would shape them up to be just as formidable as any Demo crew member. And they wreaked havoc on any server that they touched. And it was like I was seeing my own group live again through new people. And just seeing the tactics that we all used back in the day still working and still being used. And still eliciting the same reactions from people. It was very, very fun and very nostalgic to really experience. And like everything, eventually it would come to an end. But I wasn't really sad about it coming to an end, because I knew it would end. And the 3 players who I would taught this would move on to different things. Even though it had ended and everyone eventually moved on, this experience taught me that I was able to teach people and be a good trainer for anybody else that I actually thought could be taught. I proved to myself that I was a lot more than just a random person. I knew whatever legacy was left behind by the people before me, I knew that I would continue their legacy. Code conveniently would come back after this little experiment I had done, and the reason why he was gone was apparently is because he didn't get any notifications from Discord or any other kind of telecommunications about any of us. That's why he didn't say anything or look, which was odd, but it would be sort of necessary because right after this, Sven had ghosted me. Sven completely ignored my messages I had sent to him a while ago and completely just didn't respond to anything I was sending him. So, one day, just like how I met him, I would find him in the Unturned official Discord server sitting in a voice call by himself. And I joined the call. And I asked him, "Hey, did you see any of the glitches I sent you?" And he was a little bit upset just by the way that he was somewhat kind of going about his words. But he would say to me, "I'm done sending your shit anymore. You send it yourself." And it just put me in shock because I felt like I had done really nothing to warrant that sort of response from somebody, especially a person of his caliber. And it really just made me a little bit upset. Not in like the angry way, just kind of like, oh, okay. And that's when I enacted my kind of last kind of attempt to try to get glitches fixed by Nelson. I felt like I expended all of my options, and my back was against the wall. Nobody wanted to help me, and there was no path forward to getting these glitches fixed, or at least seen by Nelson. And I felt like I wasn't even asking for much. I wasn't asking for the barrette. I wasn't asking for like my name to be plastered on the main screen or anything like that. All I wanted was these glitches to be seen by Nelson so that he could be aware that they exist. And it just kind of frustrated me that nobody really cared. So, I would make the video called My Experience with Nelson Sexton. I had uploaded the video to YouTube, and I knew I had to upload this video to the forums, because it was the only place I actually had gotten a response from Nelson, as hollow as it was. I knew that I was entering a lion's den when posting the video to the forums, but I didn't care, because all I wanted was the only thing I cared about since the beginning. Just Nelson understanding what has been going on in his video game. I quickly was attacked by people in the forums saying that I was lying, misconstruing stuff that I had said, saying that I was just in it for the hat, not caring about the video game, and just basically saying a bunch of horrible things about me. Just basic internet stuff. And the only person who actually was on my side and would apologize to me was Nelson. He actually felt kind of bad about everything that had went down and was now going to make everything right. But that didn't stop everybody else from kind of clowning on me and attacking me for this video. People like I mentioned earlier, Omyat would be there attacking me for this video, and other people as well who were also pretty established in the community at that point. I would post just a glitch that I had on my YouTube channel onto the forums, and people would just quickly attack that video as if I was sending the same video again, to the point where even Nelson had to defend me in a response from these people attacking me. And yeah, it was quite interesting. After this whole debacle, me and Code kind of made a plan. So we accumulated a bunch of glitches into one video, and I had told Molt prior that I was going to work on this entire bundle of glitches. And basically I made the video and sent it over to Molt, and Molt CC'd Nelson in. And Nelson asked for both of our Steam accounts, which I had provided, and not too long after, we would be given our hats for the amount of glitches that were in that video. I would later repurpose those glitches to make Glitchmas, and drop that video on December 25th of 2019. I had won. I got the glitches that I sent over to Nelson to be fixed. After sending all those glitches, I had gotten my barrette, and yet I felt hollow. After this point, glitching to me just became really unfun. It was something that, honestly, I just didn't find fun to do anymore. I was sent some stuff over the Molt and Nelson, just because I would find stuff still, without really even trying. But it just wasn't fun to do anymore. And I kind of just lost all purpose to play Unturned. There was no real goal anymore. For me, there was nothing really else to do. I had felt like I had done everything. And around that time of just after December of 2019, it was just, what else is there to do? Unturned was in no better state. At the time, more people were still believing in 4.0's release. Unturned map makers were putting out mediocre content at the time, leading to a bunch of people believing that Unturned had no more to it, and that this was the end, and that there was nothing else to be done. And it really did seem that way. The future seemed really bad, and Unturned was in a really bad state. Luckily, there was some hope. Due to the Unturned community being kind of small, it's very easy to hear gossip about projects that are being worked on behind the scenes. And I was hearing gossip through the grapevine that Danny 2 was working on a map. And I became very intrigued because everybody was hyping this up. The same people who were hyping it up were also saying that there was a playtest happening soon. So, on May 25th of 2020, I messaged Danny asking to be a part of this playtest, and he allowed me to join. I would open Elver in single player, and man, it changed a lot of things for me. I really was starting to believe the fact that there was nothing left to do in Unturned, and Elver just slapped me in the face and told me that I was wrong. And I'm glad that I was wrong. There was so much that Elver was doing that no other map had done before, and it was just fun. And it gave me hope for the future. And it was really good. Later, when the actual playtest happened, I would be introduced to a lot of the inner community, a lot of other future map makers, a lot of future people who would be working on stuff were involved in this Elver playtest. And I got my connections through there. I became friendly with the entire inner community, and to the point where I was invited to other playtests of their work. And the next playtest I'd be a part of was Kuwait. Even though I was one of the only people who was actively participating in the playtest, I would give important feedback because it was fun. It was like I was doing glitching again, but for map makers instead. And then after Kuwait had released, I would make the first SMP that I would make would be SMP Kuwait, where I invited a bunch of people to a server hosted by another person, and it would be one of the best SMPs by memory that most people can point to as a good SMP. And it was pretty fun. Later, I would be invited to play test Arid, and Arid was pretty self-explanatory. I knew when I was playing Arid that this map was going to be insane. And I remember talking to Renaxon for about an hour, just talking about Unturned, maps, and what I think the player base would like. Once I had realized that I was talking about an hour to Ren, I thought of what I could do with just that ability to talk about Unturned for that long. There's a show called The Baited Podcast that exists between a couple of content creators who were involved in the YouTube drama scene. And I really enjoyed listening to them and listening to the random stuff that they would just talk about on a episode basis. And I took a lot of inspiration from them to make my show, The Unturned Podcast. I had called someone that I knew I could rely on, which was Trident Games, and I told him, let's do something every week for next year, and just do it because we can, and I want you to be there with me for this entire ordeal. I asked Trident to be my second host of the Unturned Podcast, and on December 30th of 2021, we made the YouTube channel. And the rest is history. I remember recording the last episode of the Unturned Podcast and leaving to go to see family for Christmas. And just thinking about on my way to see family, man, I did that. It was a moment of joy, and I was very happy. But the scene itself was starting to crack, and people had started to treat each other more negatively as time had gone on. And the time that went on coincided with the podcast, which led to more and more ridiculous stuff happening. Different people would be attacked by different other people in this community, and it just got kind of ridiculous, to the point where it happened to me. I would join a call one day with some of the people from the inner community, and without even saying a word, I was told this. Oh, it's the Glitcher. You know, me and you are kind of similar. We both find glitches for Unturned. Oh wait, no we aren't. I get paid. It kind of shocked me because it just didn't like really compute in my head that someone like that would just say something like that to me, especially when I didn't say anything about money. Nor have I ever cared about money. And I just said okay as a response to that, and I just couldn't believe what was said. Felt really awkward about it, and I left the call not too long after. And I just didn't understand why there was any hostility against me, and what made them just say something like that to me. I'm not naming the person because I don't think it's really important to. I think it's better that you all understand that in this community and over the years, there has been always people like this, and surprisingly, they're part of almost every part of Unturned. And it's kind of awful. Kind of really sad to think about. I would move away from that group because the group was just toxic towards everyone, and the group was spearheaded by toxic people. I had made a lot of SMP servers in the past, and I was going to make a new one for Polaris. So, I invited a couple new people, and in that group of new people was a person called Megamind. Now, he was introduced by another person who was involved in the server, but I accepted his call to invite him because he was a guy making Unturned content somewhat fairly recently. And I invited him, and we just started playing the map normally. It wouldn't be until like the third day I would start interacting with Megamind, and I realized something very interesting about Mega, and that Mega didn't really care about anything of like the drama or anything like that. Mega cared about one thing, and it was having fun. And surprisingly, that is very hard to find. A person who just wants to have fun with a game, especially with Unturned. And I remember just telling Mega some of the dumb shit that was happening behind the scenes, and we would both laugh at it and make jokes. Even some of the jokes even bled into a video that he would make on his YouTube channel. And we quickly became friends. And we would go on to go play on Polaris PvP servers together. And it was one hell of a time. Basically, around that time, too, I offered Mega to be a part of the Unturned podcast because he was a new guy coming up. So, after the first year was complete and my schedule moved to monthly, I would give him the third month to be a part of the podcast. I had a lot more time on my hands, so I started playing Unturned a lot more. And I would join a friend by the name of Sky on Arid Kodak. And they were playing solo, living in a glass house. And I just wanted to play for a little bit, but then I realized I started rolling everybody, and I'd bring back so much loot that we couldn't store in the base anymore. And then later on, Mega would join us, and we just rolled the entire server even more so. And we just didn't have enough room to store in the base. And it was so fun. I was having the time of my life. Later, Mega would get off, and I would stay on, and then another person would join, which is Trying Games. And this was the moment where everything kind of clicked for me when it came back to Unturned.
Would you do it like what? 50 hours?
So easy, bro. So easy, dog. Like.
That's coming from a guy who has 8,000 hours.
To die. Yes.
I had gotten my groove back, and this groove was what I realized about Unturned. Unturned, you're supposed to have fun in it. And it's not to be dictated by the people in the inner scene making stuff, or the YouTube scene, or anybody else. It's dictated by how you play it, and whether or not you have fun in it. So, I wanted to, play Unturned to have fun. And quickly everything kind of changed. For me, at least. It was a new revival, it felt like. I felt like I was sort of a new person, to a degree. And I was glad to be playing Unturned again, and having fun in it again. March had come around, and we recorded the podcast episode with Mega. And I was pretty happy to talk to Mega for this podcast, because we were playing Unturned together for a while now. We played in tournaments, we played on PvP servers together. We did a lot together. It was very fun. And it was really fun recording that episode. And I remember posting it and being very happy with the ep. And then everything went great. Everything was great. Everything was going well. And then 9 days later, after we posted the podcast episode, I would be told that Megamind was dead. On March 14th, I was told, and I was only told by an IRL friend, that had some connections to another person in the Unturned community who told me. And I didn't really believe it at first because I thought it was just some sick joke. Something really, like, really stupid. I just thought it was, I just didn't think it was real. I didn't believe it. And as we quickly kept asking more questions and figuring out more of the story, it quickly became not a joke. Once I had found out it wasn't a joke, I went to go look for any family member I could talk to of Mega's, and I would find his dad, and I would message him asking him to talk to me and like over the phone, and he agreed. And the next day we would have a conversation, and I would tell him all the stuff about Mega and how Mega was just a guy who wanted to have fun, never caused any problems, and just wanted to play Unturned and make videos. And I'm just trying to tell Mega's dad and fill in the gaps of the stuff that he didn't know about his son, and tell him about how good he was for the whole scene. Mega's dad told me a story of Mega playing Unturned, and it was when he was teaching him how to drive, and Mega would stop at, in park, and his dad would ask him what he was doing recently, and Mega brought up to his dad. He said, "Oh, we built this glass house, and we would kill players, bring back all their stuff, and they would come outside and they would talk shit to us, and we would talk shit back." And my heart sank, because one of the last memories that Mega's dad was talking about was a memory that Mega had with me. And in this last video, you can see that exact memory of us doing that exact thing. It fucking hurt so bad to know that that was one of the last things that Mega would tell his dad. And it fucking hurt more knowing that it was with me. I knew the kid was going to be great. He was on the track to become something way better than a lot of other people. And it's just so sad to see someone that young just go away. I couldn't really, like, it still hurts. It still hurts to this day. The entire community would get together and would, ask Nelson to add a memorial for Mega, and Nelson did, added it on Washington, and it brought the community together because everyone knew Mega, and it was just really sad. Everyone put their differences aside, everyone just paid their respects to Mega, and that was it. The peace didn't last long, and once it had broken, I got tired of it. So I went on to go play Unturned again, and I happened to play with a lot of different people to the point where I felt confident enough to make a group of people to play Unturned with. And we made a group to play Kodak Arid, and it was pretty fun. I had a bit of a blast on Kodak Arid. And we got along so well that we actually made a bigger group just to play Unturned together, which was the UI. We made that group on May 30th of 2023, and we would continue playing together until like today. We still play together to this day, and we get more people in the group, and we just, had a really fun time just playing Unturned. It was a breath of fresh air, and it was just fun playing Unturned again. At the end of the year, we recorded an episode with Nelson. Prior to that episode, I got into a private call with Nelson and explained what was going to happen to the podcast and what was going on, really, and why I felt the way I did about certain things. And, we recorded the last episode with Nelson, and we dropped on December 3rd of 2023. And without telling anybody, I recorded the last actual episode and published that on January 1st of 2024, where I basically say that the Unturned community is basically failing Unturned. And the more nihilistic and more kind of, oh, there's nothing else to do in Unturned, really annoyed me, because there is a lot you can do in Unturned, and people just don't know what to do. And it just really made me annoyed, and that last podcast episode I did solo really just showed how much I really hated that mentality. And on January 1st, I posted it, and I started making YouTube videos again. And holy moly, the amount of views and subscribers I've gained just from doing Unturned YouTube videos really shows that you can still do stuff in Unturned and be successful. And I still want to make it, still want to continue going on, and hopefully prove to everybody that this is still a possibility. You know, this video is about playing Unturned, but I feel like the majority of this stuff was just about people and not even playing Unturned. Whenever I hear people tell stories about Unturned, they talk about their first time getting like the PW, or like their first time getting a Dragon Fang and ranking a base. My memories are this, and it makes me kind of sad to think that what I remember from my early days is a bunch of just negative nonsense and a bunch of people being completely rude to me, especially people who were in powerful positions. And I just think about the current state of things now and how things were back then, and realizing that it's always been the same. And I think about it a lot, and I think, was it even worth it? Was it worth putting all this time into this game? Was it worth doing all of this? Was any of this for anything?
Boy, you should know that I've got you on my mind, your secret admirer. I've been watching